Breakfast at Tiffany's is one of my all-time favourite movies. It's a classic rom-com, arguably the classic rom-com, but it's not like the dreadful nonsense of Richard Curtis and Hugh Grant. It's humorous and entertaining while having a sensitive heart, ignoring the one huge problem. Audrey Hepburn's performance is iconic and a favourite of women who want to express classical elegance and style. If it wasn't for Mickey Rooney, it would be perfect. It began life as a novella by Truman Capote, the man who wrote In Cold Blood and effectively invented the true crime genre. At fewer than 100 pages, it's one of the easiest adult reads imaginable, but manages to pack in a great deal that other writers would need 300 to accomplish. There's always controversy when a popular novel is adapted for the big or small screen, where purists decry various changes to characters and narrative, while moviegoers just want to see something good. One would think that I would laud the movie as a great adaptation, but it's a bit more complicated. From a literary standpoint, the movie is not a great retelling of the novel. That's because the original, while pretty much the same story, has a very different tone, and Holly Golightly is a much darker, tragic, interesting, and, in a way, less likeable character than on film. The premise is an unnamed narrator remembering a year or so of his life when he got to know this mysterious neighbour Holly, a woman of about 19 years who lives in the apartment below him. It starts in 1956, when the narrator visits the bar of an old friend, Joe, who shows him a photo of an African tribesman holding a wood carving of a head that looks exactly like Holly. The photo was taken by Mr. Yunioshi, a former neighbour and photographer. The narrator then retells the story. He first meets her in 1943. He is distracted by an argument outside his apartment. She has just come in from a very late night with a man. Mr. Yunioshi complains that she keeps ringing his doorbell to be let in, even in the early hours of the morning. She condescendingly apologises, though suggests that she might let him take certain photos he asked her for. She doesn't let the man in, despite his sense of entitlement after all the money he'd spent on her. Holly then decides to ring the narrator's bell, and he sees her out and about, often dining at fancy restaurants in the company of multiple men, usually different each time, and always seeming bored by their conversation. He even notices her trash includes material on travel and astrology, as well as an unusual brand of cigarettes. She also plays a guitar and has a ginger cat with no name. Eventually they meet when, in the early hours of one morning, she climbs into his bedroom from the fire escape to avoid another man she's brought home and now regrets. We find out that she has a brother called Fred, who looks like the narrator and is in the army. She christens the narrator Fred, who reveals that he is a writer, and she decides that she wants to help him with some of the men she's become acquainted with. He tells her about a story he's worked on, about two female school teachers who live together, as she identifies them as lesbians, which leads into her talking about her preference for having a lesbian roommate because she thinks they make better homemakers. She even suggests that she has some tendencies herself, and that it seems to make her male suitors even more keen on her. When she realises it's actually Thursday, she reveals that she earns money visiting a well-known mobster called Sally Tomato once a week at Sing Sing prison, where he gives her a weather report to pass on to his lawyer. Their friendship progresses over the rest of the year. She invites him to her apartment one time, but what he thinks is a private get-together turns out to be a full party, all male guests, including two naval officers, an Air Force colonel, and her acting agent, who tells the narrator about how she rejected a great role in a movie because she wasn't interested. He thinks she's a phony, and that everything she says and does is for show. Another man there is Rusty Trawler, a millionaire man-child nepo baby whom Holly treats more like a servant than a friend. Turns out that they had both been subjects of local gossip columns. A woman called Mag Wildwood gatecrashes, making a great scene and diverting some of the men's attention. We also learn that Holly often visits Tiffany's just to calm down from what she calls the mean reds. She isn't that interested in expensive jewellery though. We then progress through the months, when Mag has moved in with Holly. The narrator has a short story published in the University Review, but isn't being paid, and Holly is disappointed by his lack of earnings. They spend a fun day together, eating out and stealing from a Woolworths, and we meet Mag's fiancé, a Brazilian diplomat called Jose Ibarra Yeager, who spends half the week in Washington DC. The narrator even spots Holly visit a library, and after spying on her, finds that she's been researching about Latin America, and Brazil in particular. At Christmas, she buys him a hideous birdcage that they'd seen earlier, and made him promise not to put any birds in it. He tries to kiss her to thank her, but she politely blocks him. He bought her a St. Christopher's from Tiffany's. They eventually have a falling out though, after the narrator suggests he earns money being Rusty's companion out of jealousy, but they reconnect after he finds out that someone is spying on her. The spy is her husband, Doc Golightly, who married her when she was 14. Here we learn that her real name is Lula Mae Barnes and that she had been living in Tulip, Texas. The narrator reconnects them, but she refuses to leave her life in New York. Rusty marries Mag, and the narrator wrongly thinks Holly's freakout is because of that. But it's actually because her brother has been killed in the war. We also learn that Mag's full name is Margaret Thatcher Fitzhugh Wildwood. Holly and Jose soon become involved, making the narrator very jealous. Then Holly is arrested, accused of being involved in an international drug ring being run out of prison by Sally Tomato. Jose breaks off their relationship because of the scandal, but Holly decides to continue with her plan to leave for Brazil, not worried about the consequences of leaving while under a federal charge. She gets a limo with the narrator to the airport, stopping by an alleyway to leave her cat to fend for itself. She quickly regrets it, but by the time she goes back, it's gone. She leaves in the limo, leaving the narrator on the street. We learn that Holly made it to Argentina, promising to send the narrator her home address. But it never happens. Over the months, he goes looking for the cat, until eventually spotting it in a window of someone's home, looking healthy and well looked after. That's a lot to pack into 91 pages. The main aspect of it is that it isn't particularly funny nor romantic. Holly is not the scatty-brained, ditzy socialite of the movie. She lives by a double standard where she values honesty in others but doesn't live according to her own standards. She's young and beautiful and utilises that to get what she needs from men, which is often money, but she's certainly not a prostitute. She knows very well what she can get from men and how to get it without getting physical, exemplified by understanding of how positively men react when she lets them know she might have certain tendencies, though it's never clear that this is actually true. We also learn that she has been sexually active since before she was 13, which has all sorts of implications as to the nature of her childhood and what damage it must have done to her psychologically. Her relationships with men are fleeting and transactional, but far from inherently sexual. She has a desire for companionship, but love does not seem to be a necessary condition for her. The only man she loves is her brother Fred. She dreams of living with him in Mexico, raising horses. His death produces her most extreme emotional expression in the whole story. She's manipulative towards men, dangling the carrot of kinky photos to placate her angry neighbour and letting men know they might satisfy certain fantasies they may have. With the narrator, her manipulation is gentler and more platonic. She doesn't give him any hints of a potential affair, even rejecting him when he tries to kiss her thank you. Her relationship with the narrator is a great example of friend zoning. He falls in love with her and maintains his feelings for her over the years between her vanishing and seeing the photo. She relies on him, but she doesn't give much back, not even a peck on the cheek. Unlike many men in her life, he doesn't feel a sense of entitlement, and she doesn't use him for money. She must know that he has feelings for her, but she doesn't play with them for her own benefit. There is genuine affection for him, but she knows he can't give her the stability and peace of mind she desires. But he's a good friend, and he fills a few gaps in her life. She's not a villain as such, but she's not a good guy either. That's the narrator, and to a lesser extent, Joe the barman. The movie made some big changes. The darker tone was changed. Mr. Yoshi had a greater and controversial part to play, and many of the sexual undertones were removed. In fact, the movie portrays the narrator, now called Paul, as a gigolo to an older woman. Also, Paul brazenly declares his love for her and they passionately kiss in the rain after reuniting with the cat. It's a straightforward romance with a happy ending, stripped of all the mystery. It's hard to call this a love story, as Holly doesn't love the narrator and even his feelings for her are somewhat muted. Her only desire is to find a man who can give her a lifestyle and opportunities that were never possible during her childhood, but her ultimate dream is to live out her life with her brother, and his death is the trigger for her only true emotional expression. He is the greatest love of her life. This is a fantastic way to spend a day reading. It took me about 4 hours, but I'm not exactly a fast reader at the best of times. There are also 3 short stories included: House of Flowers, A Diamond Guitar, and A Christmas Memory, but I've never gotten around to reading them. Capote masterfully uses tight narrative and detailed dialogue to develop the main characters without any kind of fat hanging off the edges. Even Norman Mailer said Capote was the most perfect writer of my generation, and that he would not have changed even 2 words of the story. If, like me, you're an aspiring novelist, this is a perfect novel to read to get an idea of how to write an efficient plot where every scene and every bit of dialogue is necessary to build the world and push the narrative forward. There are no left field tangents, nor people whose presence makes no difference or sense. If you're looking for a quick, easy, enjoyable, and compelling read, then you can't go wrong with this one-day masterpiece.